Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook. This week's guest is Jon Hammer. Jon, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to be on this week's podcast. So why don't we go ahead and just get started, Jon? What we like to do typically with the podcast is kind of take a trip down memory lane. You know, when you were had the inception of the idea of, hey, you were thinking of getting to real estate, become a realtor. What kind of got the wheels in motion for you and kind of sparked that idea?
Well, my wife and I were, I would say, passive investors and have been for the past 20 years. And so in 2020, when my son was graduating from college, I graduated in the middle of COVID, no jobs, and he said, Dad, I'm going to get my real estate license. And at that time in my other career, my company was being acquired by a Fortune 100 company, and I was ready to do something different. So we formed a team. And I don't know many parents that wouldn't really love to work with their child in some capacity. And as you know, Joe, he did very well in 21 and 22.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, you know, when Austin was graduating, he was contemplating what he wanted to do. There's the job market. There wasn't too many opportunities with COVID. A lot of people shut down. He's like, hey, I might want to do the real estate. You kind of having a passion for real estate, investing it 20 years, and also be like, hey, you know what? I've been kind of thinking about an idea. This might be the perfect time. Plus, I get to kind of build a business and even a potential legacy working side by side with my son.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it all came together. I mean, it was really perfect because, you know, when you drag kids along to look at homes when they're little, you know, they hate it. And you probably did that with your kids. But it was great to see how much he actually picked up.
Yeah.
Because you learn a lot of construction techniques. You know, we made him put in seawalls, and he did a lot of things, drywall work, and now, you know, obviously he knows a lot about the real estate, and he was able to help his clients out.
That's awesome. Yeah, just a lot of hands-on training from the investment properties
absolutely.
And getting his hands dirty a little bit, it sounds like.
Absolutely, yeah. Pay us back.
There you go. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your previous occupation? What we like to do is see, you know, what people who can get into a high level of success rather quickly, what their background was and what were some of the skills that they acquired through their previous occupation to help them transition into real estate.
Sure. So I came from a medical device background, medical device sales, and really specifically surgical. So in the early 90s, I entered into a field with doing total joint reconstruction. I went on to do that for several years with Johnson & Johnson. Then I moved into a vascular capacity and worked with clogged arteries and veins below the waist. And so I think those types of customers and physicians that you call on, I mean, customer service has to be 100%. You can't drop the ball. You can't not show up for a surgery. You cannot have extensive product knowledge. And so I think those things correlate and move very, freely into real estate. You know, the better customer service, the better you inform your customers, the more you are informed about construction practices and what they're looking for and can help them out, I think the more successful you can be.
Yeah, so it sounds like, I'm assuming from, hearing what you're saying, there was a lot of skills that you acquired through the, medical sales and doing that for several years that you transitioned. One, like you talked about, the developing the relationships. Two is becoming an expert of your craft, like having the product knowledge of what it is that you're selling, because I'm assuming if you were in there with the surgeries or, if you had to give instructions to the doctor, you had to know exactly how it worked, when to use it, and all the ins and outs, similar to you want to know how everything works with the house, the plumbing,
Correct.
The roof, things of that nature to help and assist your client. But also some other skills that I think a lot of, especially younger agents, I think, who don't have the life experience yet, they kind of struggle with a little bit, is a routine and being disciplined to a calendar. And in your field, you had to, right? Because I'm sure if you're a no-show for a doctor, you're running late, you're done. You're done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you kind of develop that skill. Hey, show up on time, be ready, be prepared,
Sure.
and kind of stick to the calendar routine.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, but great things, there are a lot of training. There are a lot of exercises available to young people who they can learn those skills. Those are all learnable things. I mean, so everybody can do well, but I definitely had an advantage, coming from that kind of background, being trained by numerous companies over the years. And then, again, buying real estate on the side with my wife and working on just taught us. In the beginning, we didn't know how to do anything. And in the end, well, we still, are interested in doing that, but we know a lot more now.
Yeah, and you probably already had, from your investing, some background, even though you might not have, I don't know if you were using an agent or you're kind of doing for sale by owner yourself, but you had some product knowledge of contracts, right? Like
Correct.
you understood a lot of the terms, how the
Correct.
contingencies work, things like that, where kind of coming in and getting started, you didn't have to kind of have a complete learning curve where it's like, I don't understand this language, or,
Right.
Most realtors, if they haven't owned a home, it's usually they might have done one or two transactions in their
Sure.
life before getting licensed, but you had extensive.
Right.
Experience
Yeah,
and
I wrote
practice.
all the contracts. I just left a lot of things blank.
So you
definitely
did. Yeah, and then also, when you're kind of meeting the client for the first time, one of the most important things I think is building rapport and establishing that relationship. And I'm sure kind of, a lot of people might get nervous meeting a buyer or seller for the first time with your outside sales experience and knocking on doctors' doors. It's probably like second nature to you, where you're kind of just very calm with the buyers and sellers and
Right.
just building that relationship,
Sure.
and continuing to
Absolutely.
do business
Yeah.
with them. So that's awesome. So, we always like to find out. So you kind of are going to be a little bit different because you did have some experience in real estate before getting in. So you didn't just kind of get in with almost a vision, but didn't know what to expect. We always like to ask, what's one thing you did not expect when starting real estate? Like one thing that might have taken you for surprise.
I would say buyers who just were unprepared themselves. Who really hadn't thought about the process much, who hadn't maybe looked at their financials, who maybe hadn't spoken to a lender, who were unaware of any I guess knowledge about homes in general. So I guess I was kind of surprised, which then we have to do a lot more education. Which can be good because that can be a rapport building exercise. But I would think that would be people coming who are just completely unprepared and might even have a home they want to sell and don't really know where to start. But again, I look at those all as opportunities.
Absolutely. And that's kind of where you're going to, one, if you give them the advice and they didn't have that information, you're building the trust and kind of gaining their confidence to kind of work with you.
Yep.
But two, what it sounds like is a lot of buyers kind of putting the cart before the horse, per se. Is like, hey, let's go out, let's look at homes, but they really don't know what they're looking at. They don't know what their payment's going to be, what their price they can get approved for.
Sure.
And a lot of times, as I'm sure you've experienced and a lot of people do, and usually it's experience that's going to be your best lesson in life, I've found, is they'll start to go look at homes, but once they finally get over to the lender and they get pre-qualified, they find out, hey, one, I can afford more, or two, maybe I can't afford that price point, or three, maybe the payment's higher than I was looking for, even if I could afford it. So
Yeah, they could be disappointed.
yeah, rather quickly. And then if they see a house up here and they set the bar for here, but they're trying to get a home at a lower price point, sometimes their expectations have now changed because they're like, hey, I saw that, but I
Right.
want this payment.
Sure.
So it kind of creates some friction playing in that middle ground.
Right.
So yeah, when that I think happens all the time, and as I think it's happened in every era of real estate, and I don't really see it changing. I just think it's going to be having that consultation. That's what the real estate advisors for. Their purpose is kind of bringing that education and kind of letting them know. But I know myself, and probably similar to yourself, you got your ducks in a row before the home search kind of came on the back end. Hey, let's get the financing. Let's see the finances. How much do I got to put down? What's the rate
Right.
going to be? What's the payment? If you're buying it for an investment, can I, rent roll this? Is it profitable? What's the cap rate? Things of that nature.
Sure. And I think real estate agents have to be able to ebb and flow because what happened during COVID is now different now.
Yeah.
And what happened pre-COVID, and you've been
Different.
in real estate a long time, so we have to be able to move with, how the market is changing and then be able to, wrap our arms around those buyers and sellers and help them out during these times because they might not fully understand how things have changed. And so if we're very knowledgeable about how those things are changing and interest rates and inspections and everything, then I think we can help serve our clients a lot better.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point you break up that I'll do a little deeper dive on. I think it's, we constantly have to pivot and move, and it's rather quickly. It's not like this gradual, we got some time to figure it out.
Sure.
Usually happens overnight. Like last year, third, fourth quarter, rates were going up.
Boom.
Market kind of came to a screeching halt almost, and then picked up momentum come the first of the year. But also in regards to that, where I feel usually the media is about 3 to 6 months behind what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So as people are seeing the news and they're seeing the speculation, usually, we're getting the boots on the ground information quicker and to advise those clients, hey, it's not all doom and gloom like the media is making it out, or hey, it's not as much of this buyer frenzy as the media is making out. And two, if you're watching the news on a national spectrum, every market's different, and obviously, being in Florida now,
Yes.
we're kind of an outlier regardless of what's going on in the rest of the nation.
Right. Absolutely.
I completely agree with that. And if you have, so obviously you got into production rather quickly, you're working with your son, developing a team, building your clientele, your database. If you were to kind of give advice, John, to an agent who's contemplating getting licensed right now, maybe it's somebody who's newer and they're having trouble getting into production. Maybe it's somebody who's been seasoned for a year or two and they're not hitting their goals, they're not having the traction they want. What would be your one tip or one bit of advice that you would give to help get that agent some momentum and start to change their mindset?
Well, I think one is you need to surround yourself, with a brokerage that's going to help you learn and not just throw you, into the wolves, but is going to provide information and training to help, a CRM that they can work with.
So the tools and resources.
And just helping them, work the calendar, helping them, if they're working on different lead sources, how to manage those folks, set expectations, all those different things. I think finding the right brokerage that fits.
Fit what they're looking for. And it sounds like when you're kind of doing a dive into that, you're finding a brokerage who's going to have the training, the tools, and the resources that you need to be successful, and then kind of having the vision of what you want your business to look like, and then finding a brokerage that's going to align with that vision and provide you what you need.
Right.
Yeah.
And because those brokerages will have people who have been there a long time who might specialize in a certain area, might do waterfront, they might do, bayshore only, and you can really learn from those people.
Acreage.
This person, new person might, have a specific niche or niche that they want to work in, and there will be somebody there that can help them do that, and grow in the business.
Yeah,
and so I think that's really important to, find people that are going to wrap their arms around you and help you, and then let you go and maybe make a few mistakes, but then help you learn from those mistakes.
Yeah, and then the mistakes aren't too bad because you have somebody that you can reach out to. So if a mistake is made, you still have time to make that correction.
Yeah. No jail mistakes, but just little mistakes.
I hear you. And then if you were to kind of take, thinking about when you kind of first got licensed, you're starting, it's during COVID. So obviously, like you said, the market was different. Was there anything that you would have done differently yourself, kind of going back, if you could be like, hey, I would have changed this or I would have changed that?
I think I landed in a really great environment because even though I had knowledge that most people don't about real estate, I still didn't really know anything. I mean, and there were a lot of things, and there were a lot of calls to my team leader she really helped me, because there are just things that, you want to do correctly so that you protect your buyer or your seller and that you don't, have to backpedal, legally once something's been done. So I feel that I really ended up in a good spot. And that was very helpful. And I think Austin will also attest, that he also felt, that it really helped us ramp up, 0 to 60 or 100 miles an hour in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
But everything we needed was here.
Awesome. And then, talking about the market, John, what's something that right now you might be doubling down in or going all in on? What are you kind of working on personally for your business to ensure that not only you have the continued success you've had, but also take it to the next level?
Yeah, I think it's really focusing on your sphere of influence. It's taking those older buyers and sellers and making sure that you stay in contact with those sellers. And I, like anybody, can do a better job at that. I'm trying to get better and better so that I someday can have referrals and sellers and buyers who are just friends of friends of friends. Like you hear sometimes when you're out in the field, you hear of these, agents that have been around for a long time and they just have constantly have. So that's what I'm trying to do, is really take that CRM, take that list, and really reach out and touch those folks so that when they have people, friends and family that are moving here out of state, in state, that Jon Hammer is their go-to source, because I'm just going to methodically help them through the process.
And then in return too, you're not only going to have them, but you're going to have referrals from them when they're people looking for agents.
So that's kind of where I am. I want to just build that network to, a large level.
So what it sounds like right now is you're kind of starting to plant the seeds, start to fertilize, work on that plan. And then eventually down the road, you plan to have like a all referral base clientele, which is what most agents strive to get,
Sure.
and kind of enjoy the fruits of your labor and
Right.
from all the groundwork you're putting in.
And there's a lot to there are hundreds of different companies that advertise on Facebook and, how they can help grow your business. And so I figuring out the marketing part is difficult.
Yeah.
Do I want a billboard? Do I want to do neighborhood mailers? What is the different? And folks at the brokerage have tried all that. So, that's another thing we're trying to figure out. What can we invest in that, doesn't break the bank, but also will yield the biggest return?
Yeah, and speaking of that, especially if you come from a marketing perspective, it's to understand the difference in marketing. Like, am I going to a lead specific marketing campaign where I'm looking at ROI and what the acquisition cost is going to be, or is this more of a branding play where hey, all right, I've got some momentum now, we have leads coming in a business, but maybe it is the billboard because I want to have the face with the name, get the recognition, especially for this local market I'm working. I want people to kind of drive by and see our faces all the time and work on the branding. So.
Right.
Absolutely, makes perfect sense. So then, John, typically, I know you work a wide area here in the Bay Area. As north is Hernando County, all the way down to Sarasota, east is Polk. For any buyer or seller in the market, looking to purchase, looking to sell, or maybe it's somebody who's wanting to come into this market, invest, or pick up another investment property. What's the best contact information for them to reach you at? If you give me the best email and best number for them to reach you on.
Okay. Well, it's my cell is 813-486-1024, and my email is john.hammer@54realty.com.
And it's Jon.
Jon.
Just want to make sure you get that.
That's right.
Jon.hammer, Hammer, @54realty.com. We'll make sure to get all that information posted on the websites as well.
Right, yeah.
So that way,
Give me a ring.
Social sites. Absolutely. And I know you'd be willing to help them with all their...
We do a lot of waterfront too. So
there you go. Yeah, you have vast knowledge. You live on it as well. So you know the lifestyle.
right.
So you know the lifestyle for the lakes,
right.
oceanfront, all that great stuff. So we appreciate you being a guest on this week's podcast.
thanks for having me.
And we appreciate all of you tuning in to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook.